Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be using this little sheep set that I purchased from Ali. I got this sheep set at the end of last year. I got a whole lot of stuff come in and life kind of got crazy busy, so I just put it all in a big pile and I'm only really having a look at it all in the new year. So anyway, I saw this little sheep. And in fact, I actually saw this little love heart. There's a tiny little love heart in the bottom left-hand corner of the stamp set. And it reminded me of Valentine's Day coming up. So this is a little Valentine's card. And I am using my Misty to stamp this little sheep who's got his arms wide open. And I'm using some VersaFine Onyx black ink and stamping it a couple of times because you can see that his little mouth is kind of not stamping very good. So when I press nice and hard on those bits that I missed, it ends up stamping really well. Then I'm just using some, this is Wow embossing powder, and this is the clear. I want to heat emboss these just to give them a little bit of shine. And then once I've done this first one, I decide that I'm going to do a second one whilst I'm at it because usually I end up mucking up one. So whilst I've got everything set up and ready to go, I'm just going to add some a second one there so that I can use that if need be. So same thing, putting embossing powder on and tipping it off, tipping all the excess off, and then using my heat gun to melt all of that embossing powder. I didn't super know what I was doing with these little sheep, but I did feel like I saw some products on my desk that I wanted to put together. So I was just having a bit of fun, and this is my first time making a card in a fair few weeks. I have this Marvy snow marker, and this is obviously for creating snow, but I thought that it would look kind of cool as the sheep's wool. It is kind of like a paint pen, I guess. So you kind of squeeze on the liquid, or you kind of paint on the liquid, and what I did learn throughout this little exercise is that the thicker you put the liquid, kind of the more bubbly and 3D the snow or wool becomes when you heat it. So I had to go back a fair few times. I wasn't sure how much to put on, so I kind of did a thin layer, spread it out a little bit, and then used my heat gun to kind of heat it up, and realized that some of it did puff up a bit, but I guess depending on how much wool you want, how much 3D effect you want, is how much liquid that you should put on. So it's quite cool because what I ended up doing is just keep heating it up, putting the paint on, and heating it up, and then putting the paint on and heating it up again and again and again until I felt like I had enough kind of the effect that I was going for. So you can see that he's got a little bit of wool up on his head and his ears, and his little body there is kind of all puffy too. And even better is that the liquid is kind of an creamy and off-white creamy color, so it doesn't blend in, like his face still stands out and it's not all just the same white color. So as I said, I just kept adding it, heating it, adding it and heating it until I felt like he had enough. I did get a little bit on my embossed line, so I just used an X-Acto knife to kind of scrape it off, and it came off just fine. Last up, I have a little Jelly Roll black glaze pen, and I'm just going over his little hooves to make them kind of nice and black. You could do his little mouth and eyes too, that would have been cool, but that's okay. And so from there, I have, working on the card, I have this wood grain cardstock, which I think is from Simon Says Stamp, and an oval die, which is from Ali, and I will try and link some of these things below. That I got, anything I got from AliExpress, I'll link below, or I'll try to. And I'm going to use the sentiment Wool UV Mine, playing on the word wool, obviously, for the sheep. So I've just stamped it out, and then I also have this background die that is swirls, and I've just done it on a scrap piece of paper. I want the swirls to go sideways as a little bit of texture behind my oval cutout where the sheep will be. So that's what that will look like. I don't like it that way up portrait because the swirls kind of go the wrong way. From here I am going to just cut out my little sentiment on my trimmer, and then also I don't have any, I don't even know if they exist, but I don't have the dies to the coordinating dies to the sheep set, so I had to fussy cut out the little sheep as well, which is fine. So I've just done that now. I've also got this grass which I purchased from Ali. This is fabric grass, and it is kind of, it has a little adhesive strip along the back, sort of a double-sided tape along the back, and I saw it and thought it'd be fun to play with. You know, different textures on a card is always fun. So I'm turning the card over, and I think I'm going to put the grass, a few layers of the grass. So I'm just using some really strong double-sided adhesive to put the first layer of grass down, and you can see that there is the double-sided adhesive on the back of the grass itself, and I will take that off when I add the next layer in. So I add just a couple of layers of the grass, and then I keep adding more and more tape in between the layers because I don't want to rely on just that thin piece of adhesive that came on the back of the grass. The worst, you don't want the card to come apart in any way, shape or form when you give it to your recipient. Then I have these cloud dies that are from Ali. I'll try and link them below. I cut out a few of them out of just the Nina Solar white scraper paper, which is the same as my card base. And then I'm just adding some foam squares just because of the bulk of the grass to kind of even it up a little bit. And then I've put that onto the little swirly textured card. I'm making my little sheep go flat, and his little arms, I didn't put any glue behind them, his little legs should I say, just because I want them to kind of sit up. My sentiment was a little bit thick for my liking, so I trimmed it up with my scissors and just put a little fishtail in the end. And then I was going to put it up the top there, but in the end I ended up putting it down below because I wanted the little clouds to be in the background up the top. So I've put it on a little bit of foam tape and put it down the bottom, and then I'm using some, I found this little red heart on my desk, which is more of a coincidence, but I've popped that in as we hand, and then I end up putting the clouds on with a little foam square behind them, and that pretty much finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been away for a while, and I'm hoping that I will have my videos coming back a bit more regularly now. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this little Valentine's Day card, and I will see you next time. Thanks, bye.